This is Cameron. Welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. Today we are going to look at why you should not keep your plants in a pot if you can help it. Let's get busy. So I believe everybody should be able to grow stuff in their backyard, on their patio, in their front yard, in a little area, whether it be fruits or vegetables. And so part of that is, when you go to the nursery, either at your big box store or at your local nursery center, you're gonna find if they're like fruit trees, they're gonna come in little pots like this. If they're those vegetables, sometimes they come in those flats and they've got a number of started plants. And those are wonderful. You've got a nursery guy who's going through and feeding them, or watering them rather, like every single day, and keeping them really happy because they want to sell them to you. The problem is you get them home and then they sit for a while. And that's not always a huge deal, except for when the weather starts getting really warm and really hot. And all of a sudden you notice that these things start running into real serious trouble. I have like 4 plants here that I've wanted to plug in. One is this moringa tree. I'm going to be planting it at some point. This ghost apple that I got to replace a different failing ghost apple. Another is this hops plant. And you wouldn't know it by looking at these things, but I've come out here like every other day in this heat in Southern California and have been watering these. But look at how bad the leaves have gotten. When I got these plants, these things were lush. This moringa tree had all sorts of foliage coming out of it and flowers. It still has flowers, but it was very, very lush, had all sorts of greenery coming off of it. And now it's just really struggling right now. This ghost apple over here I actually cut it down a little bit to fit it in my truck, but there was lots of foliage coming off of here. Now this thing is really struggling. And this hops plant was climbing it. It was really almost had filled this entire cage. You can see the little dead vines down here as they're doing it. So this thing is really dried up. If you look down here into the soil, you'll see that the soil is totally like almost just totally dry. And that's like the case with all of these things. This just goes to show the difference between a plant that stays in a pot versus one that goes into the ground. And you see this, I bought this cherry the same time that I bought that apple over there that is just wilting and all very stressed. This cherry went in the ground, and as you can see, these trees and plants are just happiest in the ground. So, there are some considerations when it comes to putting something in a pot or kind of keeping it in a container, like I did with my kumquats, for example. Those are grown in containers, and the blueberries. And that is, you want to make sure that the system is big enough to support the fluctuations in weather. Does that make sense? So this little 5-gallon pot, those little 5-gallon pots over there, are such a small system, they can be affected that much more quickly by bad weather, by hot weather, and the sun beating down on them. They heat up very quickly versus something being in the ground. As you can see now, this tree has been put into this whole system, so it's got the entire ground to work on and kind of absorb the heat of the day. The mulch layer on the top is protecting it. It's keeping that moisture in there. And that just isn't possible in the same way in those little pots. So if you're going to keep something in a container, you want to make sure that the container is, the bigger, the more stable the system is going to be. If you put some mulch on the top of it, that's going to help to retain some of the moisture in there. But that being said, it's still such a disappointment to have a few hot days, or you miss one day of watering and you can run into some real trouble. The stuff in the orchard, look how gorgeous this stuff is looking. This stuff gets watered like once a week. A nice deep watering, but it's like once a week, and everything is just lush. Everything is looking amazing. And then you come back to these guys over here that just look like they're being neglected but they're not. I've come out here. In fact, I need to just water them today to try to give them another fighting chance. The biggest thing is going to be just getting these into the ground. So I have two choices. One is three choices. One is I just keep doing what I'm doing and watch them slowly die in the heat. Another is I put them in the ground very quickly and get them in an environment that's going to be really conducive to their growing. Or third is I put them into some sort of larger container if I'm going to keep them containered plants. And so that's always a possibility too. I hope that you see the difference here. If you're having some trouble with plants that are in pots for you, consider putting them in some sort of larger container, consider planting them in the ground. But this kind of scenario is just not really a tenable one. So anyway, I hope this has given you some things to think about. Maybe you've got some questions. You're like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to fertilize it in the pot? How often am I supposed to water it? What am I supposed to do? Yada, yada, yada. Maybe let me know in the comments below. And this would be a great time, if you haven't yet subscribed to the Busy Gardener channel, to do it. Hit the subscription button, hit the notification bell, hit the, is there anything else? Like it, because that makes me feel oh so good. Put any questions or comments or thoughts you've got in the area below. I really would love to hear from you. That's one of the highlights of me doing these videos, is being able to hear what you guys are doing and what's working for you. Hey, so keep at it. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay busy.